this video will be just showing the basic patterns of programming, and I'll be doing it initially through how Node does it in the interactive mode. So I just type Node and I'm already in this console. I can say 1 and it will show 1. The interactive mode automatically shows the value of whatever I did after I've done it. So here is the basic kind of things. You have a variable and you might say it exists, but it's currently set to undefined, so I can just say A. But if you go to a variable that does not exist, like H, you'll get a reference error, and this can cause an application to crash at runtime. So if you have a variable, what you can do is you can set it to something. So now I can say, okay, that A is now set to 4. If I say A again, it is 4. Now, if I want to say if A is 3, then I'm going to say console.log, and this basically just means, it's going to write out to the terminal something. It is 3, and the next part is else, then console.log, it is not 3. So I'm done with that now, and I can run this, and it will say it is not 3. If I say A is 3 now, and I run this again, it is 3. So what I'm showing here is that you have an if, and then here is what's called the condition. The condition is a true or false statement, though in most languages it's more like if it's not false. So you can say if, well, false can be equivalent to 0 or undefined, and some other things. But besides that, I'm just going to say A is 4 again, and now what I'm going to say is A, and as you can see it was set to 4. So the next part is when it comes to these kinds of things, you have conditions or branching, which is where you have an if and then something and then some code, then else, and then you can even have an if right here, and so on, else, and so on. Now this won't work, of course, because it's invalid code, but just kind of showing that you can do branching. The next part is looping. So you can say while true, I wouldn't suggest this, console.log hello plus A, and now I can say A plus equals 1. So I'm saying set A to whatever A is plus 1, and I'm just going to run this, and you can see it is counting up at a very high rate. So I'm going to stop that. Looks like it doesn't want to stop. Okay, then I'll just go into another terminal window. So I'm going to say Node again and say var A equals 4, and again A is 4. So you have looping. So let's see here. Let's just say there's a condition called condition and set to false. Okay. But let's also now see that yes, it is set to false, and when I set it to true, then what I have is I can say while condition, and I can say if A plus equals, well, if A is greater than 20, then condition equals false. A plus equals 1. So what I'm saying here is that loop until A is violates this condition, and then break. So I can run it, and you can see it hits to 22 because what happens is the condition is set to false after it is already set to this, runs again, and then finally leaves. Now I can say the same thing if I say A equals 4 again, I can say while a is less than 20, then console.log a plus. Now what this does is it returns the value of a and then increments it. So usually you'll do something with a number and then increment it after, but you still want to return the old number. If you wanted to add the number and then return it, it's kind of like flipped around. So I'm going to do this, and you can see I counted from 4 up to 19. And once a hit 20, it violated this condition, and the loop stopped. Another thing is iteration. So let's see here. If I have an array is a collection of elements that can be accessed by index. So if I say names is set to Joe, Fred, and Bob, then if I look at name, then I see that I have the 3 elements right there. So if I say 4, I'm going to say var I as just an incremented variable, it doesn't matter what it is, equals 0. I is less than names.length, and I++. So what this does is that first I do an initialization. This is the condition statement, kind of similar to the while loop, and this happens after the end of each run. So now I can say console.log names I. So I'm accessing each name by the index. So at first it'll be 0, and then it goes and runs console.log and finds names at index 0. The entry at index 0 is Joe. Then it runs to the next, and then it ends this statement, hits this part, increments I. So now I is set to 1. It runs again, console.log, and then tries to run, okay, what is names at index 1? It finds Fred. Now note that computers always start at 0, so this is 0, this is 1, this is 2. However, the length is 3 because there are 3 elements. That's why I'm going until that point. So if I run, you see Joe, Fred, Bob. Now you'll notice this undefined thing, and that's because if I run something that has no return value, like an empty line, it will be undefined in type. And that is the basics of trying to get how programs run. At the instruction level, you don't have true loops. What you actually do is jump around between the lines, essentially, but you always have stuff like increment, set, and then of course calling functions and passing information around through registers. But that'll be left for something with C. That's the end, and I'll try to record another video sometime later.